Okay, this is now Astrology for Adults number 7, and I've got this kind of organized, and I'm aware that I may, because of what I'm going to talk about, I may drive everybody away. And this is because I began wondering, what are we doing here? It's astrology, but for what? And how do we go about it? And how do we make sure that we're learning and we're not just going around in circles? And the reason I'm saying going around in circles is because I think that's what most people do. If you look at videos on the internet and people who talk about astrology, often they just go around in circles. It's a bit like they begin with a conclusion or something they want to prove, and then they find proof, apparent proof in the horoscope. And I think it really doesn't work. So it's a bit like, I'm going to make a mess here. I'm talking about going around in circles. So people go around in circles. That's okay. A zodiac and a horoscope, that's okay. It's one circle. But if people go around in circles and then they sort of keep going and they just end up making a mess. And there's no logic to it. And there's no... You can't look at other charts and extract the same kind of information. So that's what I'm saying. Most astrology is alike. And the contrast is, can we get on track? Can we be on track? And I did a couple of lines here, and maybe we can, that's our path, and we go over here and we can get this sidetracked over here, and then we keep going. But we're sort of going in the direction of, and I think that's the problem. What are we going in the direction of? What are we expecting to learn? Are we looking for change? Are we looking for answers to questions? Are we looking for wisdom, knowledge, deeper understanding? What are we here for? And I think you don't get it in astrology videos on the internet and in most astrology books. So this number 7 lesson is about how do we get on track. So I'm talking about what people do, which is to start with a conclusion and then find proof. So an example is, recently I got this a Facebook notification. Somebody left a comment about how they woke up in the morning and the computer had broken and died, and they had to reinstall everything. And they put it down to Mars square Uranus. Mars at the end of the end of Leo, and Uranus at the end of Taurus, and there's a square between them. And so it was like wide square. It wasn't like it was exactly on the moment and the whole world suffered from a computer problem. It was her own personal problem. And she put it down to Mars being widely square. And you can't do that. People do that because Uranus is supposed to rule computers, and Mars is a god of war and brings upsets and so on. And therefore, that's why her computer went wrong. And you can't do that. It's too easy and too convenient and too ridiculous. So an example is somebody in comments on video number 6 talked about how he's got. I had asked about how does this understanding of the planet, of the house, help us understand a natal chart. And he replied that he's got Jupiter in Leo in the 12th house, because I want to know about why is the 12th being in the womb and so on. So he explained how he's got Jupiter in Leo in the 9th. And I think what he was doing was he was taking Jupiter generally, right, ruling Sagittarius, which is the 9th house. And the 9th house represents wisdom, right? And he's got Leo. Jupiter's in Leo, and Leo is the sun, so he wants to shine, right? But because it's in the 12th house, which is unfortunate or something, then when he goes to express his inner, he wants to be noticed for his inner wisdom. We can say the 9th house and the sun and Leo rather than the 12th. But whenever he tries to express it to people, he feels kind of, it's too much, it's not very good. So two things. That's, I think, how people go about interpreting a chart. And I think it's right. But there are 2 points. One is maybe his opinion or his doubt is because he's right and everybody else is wrong. Because maybe he's been brought up to obey. And people do that a lot. If you make a general connection with that computer, it's astrology, it's Uranus and it's Mars, and therefore your computer goes wrong. And it's just too casual. It doesn't work. It's not right. So the other thing is, we know from the horoscope that, what am I thinking of here? So Jupiter, in his horoscope, he's got Jupiter and Leo in the 12th, right? Which house? So you can look at Jupiter as a general significator, but maybe he's got, I don't know, maybe he's got Pisces on the 5th. That means that Jupiter ruling the 5th is the significator of his children. So Jupiter in the 12th will describe information or give you information about his children. And let's say he's got Leo rising. I meant to put Scorpio here and then Pisces on the 8th. So because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, it's all messy. Because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, the rule of the 5th is in the 12th. That gives information about his children. Because we've got Pisces probably on the 8th, then the ruler of the 8th is in the 12th. This gives information about his partner's values. They're in the 12th. And that's how you read a chart, by looking at not a general thing about Jupiter rules the 9th house, blah, blah, blah. You look at the actual horoscope you're dealing with, and we get, Jupiter's in the 12th, but what house has Sagittarius in the cusp? What house has Pisces in the cusp? And that's how Jupiter in the Leo becomes important. And you've got other houses with decanates, with Sagittarius decanate or Pisces decanate. And that's what you do. And then you get actual information about what you can do. The other thing is, a few days ago, I watched this Kepler College video about how do you have the chart of an astrologer. And they began with, we've got astrology ruled by Aquarius, right? And Uranus is important because it rules astrology. And an asteroid called Urania, I don't know what the symbol is. And so you look at the horoscope, if there's Aquarius, if there's Uranus, and there are aspects to Uranus, then you've got the chart of an astrologer, which is just ridiculous. Because if you're going to be if you've got the chart of an astrologer, shouldn't you have a mathematical mind, a good thinking mind, a good logical mind? Because as I'm going to show you in a minute, I'm going to say that astrology is not intuitive. So I want to show you this, because this, I think, this is from Flammarion's, I can't remember what it's called. And you've got this fellow on Earth looking out beyond the stars to what's going on out there, right? So this is us right now when we're looking at astrology. We're leaving behind the Earth, and we want to look out beyond the stars into what's really going on astrologically, among the stars or beyond the stars. And the planets have been circling the sun for countless thousands of years, and the zodiac is ancient. So I think what you do is we're dealing with astrology which is beyond the Earth. So we first really need to look at what's going on beyond the Earth, rather than start with what we know on Earth and try and use the planets or the zodiac to explain what's going on Earth. By all means do that, but you don't begin that way, because the fellow here is looking out beyond the Earth. And I wrote down at one point, how do we learn astrology? We have to have the attitude of being a wandering explorer, because we've got our head through here beyond the stars, and it's an unknown, it's a strange world. We haven't been there before. And so we need to explore this strange world. And we need to wander as well, which takes me back to, if I can find it, this here. That's the track we're on. But we need to wander a bit. And a planet is a wandering star, as it happens. So I'm suggesting that rather than start here with looking at the planet, the Jupiter and the Leo in the 12th. First, we begin by looking out here where it's unknown, where we need to explore and where we need to wander. We need to go beyond the Earth to begin with. So I'll show you this here. Okay, so I think I'll come back to this. So this is a Christmas tree. You've got Virgo is the angel at the top of the Christmas tree, and you've got Pisces down below. Before Virgo is Leo, and opposite Virgo is Libra. There's a concept in astrology called mate signs, M-A-T-E. So Leo and Libra go together in this diagram, and that's why Leos are so indecisive and why Librans are so bossy. So it gives you a different way of understanding the nature of the signs by considering the mate sign that goes with any particular sign. And you come back to this diagram more than once and you notice something more or something else or something you hadn't realized before the first time you looked at it. So before Leo is Cancer, after Libra is Scorpio. And this explains why Cancerians are so manipulative, because they're a mate sign with Scorpio, and also explains why Scorpios are such wimps and why Scorpios are so cowardly, because they're connected with Cancer. Before Cancer, you get Gemini and Sagittarius. They stay the same. Before, Gemini, you get Taurus and Capricorn. This explains why Taurians are so ambitious, because Capricorn is here. And Capricorn relates to Taurus, and that gives you an understanding of why Capricorns are so stubborn, because they're a mate sign with Taurus. And before that, you get Aries, the child, is weird. And why Aquarian people are so childlike and occasionally childish. So, I think there's more. Okay, I forget why I'm doing that, but anyway, I'm going down my notes here. So I'm saying you start out here, right, in this unknown, strange land where we need to explore and we need to wander. And so what you do is you study, you don't study, you look at 1,000 charts. We remember first that the zodiac is ancient and the planets are ancient. So you don't start off thinking you know best or thinking you know better. You enter the world of astrology and you're on your best behavior and you're respectful, because there's always going to be more. And you should go over it multiple times and see and find more understanding. And that's partly why I showed you this Christmas tree diagram. There's more to this. There are multiple ways of looking at mate signs that give you more and extra and underlying details about the nature of the signs. So, it's a bit like, because the zodiac is old and the planets are old as well. It's a bit like if you met Rembrandt, right? You go back in time. If you met Rembrandt, you wouldn't start telling him what to do and how to paint better. You would just realize that, okay, Rembrandt knows what he's about. Give me several years in his company and then I'll maybe be able to begin to do what he does. And in the same way, you look at multiple charts. And I mentioned before, I said study, but I didn't really mean that. I think what you do is you look at the chart. You just look. If you study it, you're going to apply what you think you know, and you're just going to go around in circles. You look at the chart, you look at it, and you think about it, and you wonder, and you ask yourself questions, and then you maybe write it down, and then you look at another chart. And when you've looked at, not studied, if you've looked at 1,000 charts, you begin to have your understanding will develop. And it means that if you study 100 charts of people who married and stayed married, and 100 charts of people who married and got divorced, you will then be able to look at the 101st chart and you know if the person's going to get divorced or not. Not because you're intuitive, but because you've looked at 100 charts and they're all different and they've all got different factors. There isn't just one thing that means you're going to get divorced, because they're all different people and different ages and different circumstances of marriage. You're going to look at 100 charts And don't think about, am I learning it? Forget that. You're on the right track. You're a wandering explorer. So you look at 100 charts, then in the 101st or the 120th, you look at it and you know, because of your subconscious mind has gathered all the information, and you're going to come back and know. But it's not intuition. It's based on looking. And your understanding will develop. So astrology is not intuitive. It's logical. And what you do is you notice and discover something, and you say to yourself, this is true in this circumstance. Is it true in other circumstances? It's always going to be true. Going back to the person whose computer collapsed. They thought, okay, well, my computer didn't work. Let's look at the chart and figure out why, rather than jump to conclusions it's Mars square Uranus. So you notice something and you wonder about it, and you say to yourself, is it true? And then you do your research and look at other charts where the same kind of thing happened, and see if that other chart tells the same kind of story. And then I'll leave you with rule number 1, assume nothing. And that's why people involved with astrology, if I can get this, that's why they go around in circles. They don't know what they're doing. They don't appreciate that you need to look for a long time before you begin to understand. You can't look once and assume that your personal experience in this area is a rule or a general rule, or is going to be applicable in more than one instance of your own self. So instead of going around in circles, be critical, be demanding of the people who claim things, and ask questions so you can get on track. Okay, last time the battery died, but this time I've got a fancy iPhone, and it didn't ring, so I'm assuming that it hasn't run out yet. So I'll see you in a few days, okay? Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.